when you're training in the military, they're not always training on like the fanciest and the coolest and the most up to date. What they're doing day in and day out is the basics: formation, foundation, mundane, repetitive movements, so that in the heat of battle, when shit's really going wrong, you can fall back on your muscle memory. And that's what happens when you dive in on the change of gratitude and mindset, right? Is like, okay, now I'm going into the battle, to the war, whatever you want to call it, with a set of skills. And that skill set falls back on gratitude, so that in the heat of the moment, whatever's going on, deals falling apart, clients yelling at you, spouses screaming about something or other, like inevitably the fires are raging in our lives at all times. It's just a matter of how big is it right now and can I handle the heat?
Keep Growing with Kevin Faulkner. Welcome, everybody. Always glad to have you. As always, I ask two things when we do these. If you know anybody that needs help with credit, I'd love to visit with them, help them any way I can. And also, when you hear something that sounds good to you, that you know you need to put it to action and make something happen with it, because I know you're going to hear some great stuff today. I've got Drewby Wilson in the house with us today, and I'm been excited to have Drewby in here. Drewby is the vice president of Apex and a leader in so many ways. And he's really, what Apex has done for me, I talk about every week in here on this, we talk about Apex and what it's done. So it's really touching to me, man. I'm glad to have you, brother. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, man, I appreciate the opportunity to be, a part of this. I know we've been connected for a couple of years now, since your journey being a part of our community. I remember when Zach had come into me early on, and he's like, "Hey, man, I got this guy. Like, I'm not sure what to do." I was like, "Can we help him?" He said, "Yeah, we can help him." I said, "Then that's our freaking job, man. We need to help this guy." And so you did the work, brother. That's the most important thing. You've done the work. You've been a great example. You've shown up. You've built your machine. And it's my honor to be here to give back a little of my time for someone who's dedicated and done the work on your side. So, man, I'm just grateful for the opportunity to share, brother.
Man. So for the people that may not know who you are, that are listening to the show, tell us just a little bit about who you are, man, where you come from and where you are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was just, to preface this, I'm going to share this story, and internally it sometimes feels a little bit like braggadocious. And so we're going to talk a little bit about imposter syndrome at the end of this, or during this at some point, because I think it'll be a good topic for people. But my story, man, is I could go all the way back to my childhood and talk about how I grew up with a single mom and a degenerate dad that was in and out of our life. And then I got into selling drugs and doing all kinds of bad shit, and kind of, went down the path that a lot of us go down in life that ain't so good. I could talk about how at one point in my life, I weighed over 300 pounds, and I had that epiphany of like, yo, I've got a kid, I've got a wife. I can't live and operate like this. I don't want to be the man who can't show up and be there for his family. I could talk about how at one point I was grinding away in an insurance agency, making $30,000 a year, and now make multiple six figures, own multiple businesses, have traveled all over the world. I have 2 best-selling books that have been on Amazon. I have a podcast with over 1,000 episodes. Like, man, my story goes long and deep, brother. What I would love to really do is, a little bit of my story, and ultimately the reason I'm here is I want to share with at least one person. Maybe it's just you and I that benefit from this call, but if there's anyone that's listening, I want them to understand, if you just take one thing away from this and you actually implement it and you stay consistent in your life, it will create a generational impact. And that's really what I'm here to share, is the value of understanding what your time is worth and being consistent and disciplined in where you invest that time. Because I am a great example, and not just myself, but the people that are in our community who have followed these same paths, of what can happen when you get committed, when you decide, hey, I'm going to make no excuses, and I'm going to become the person that I was destined to become. And I'm going to do that by focusing day after day on the little things in life that make the biggest difference.
Man, you've got me excited, dude. Let's go. You got me fired up, man.
Come on.
Yeah,
Come on.
man. Man, that drives us into Apex. A lot of our listeners are Apex. A lot of they're all growth minded people because the group's called Keep Growing.
Love it.
And you touched on this in the introduction, man. When I first signed up for Apex has been so powerful for me personally. And I think I would just be cheating the listeners, because when you find a product that's so good, it's your job, man. It's your obligation to tell people about it so that they know what that is. And that's exactly what Apex has been like for me. And I know that's what it's been like for you as well, because a lot of people don't realize when they hear the name Drew B. Wilson and think of where you are now, that you're nothing but a product of Apex as well, just like any of us.
Yeah, man. I was a client long before I ever became a part of the community and the team here in the building. And ultimately, if you're a growth-minded individual, you're my people. Because my whole life, I've always wanted and had this internal drive to get better and be better. But I put up a lot of roadblocks. I put up a lot of internal excuses about why I wasn't capable of achieving those results. And then, once you get in the right room with the right people, you start having some of those right conversations. That's when the right things can start happening. And that's really been the benefit for me. And as you mentioned, hey, when you find something that you truly believe in, that you're passionate about, you do feel called to share that, right? That's why people get into religion and they fall so deep and they're like, well, let me tell you about this thing, because they're passionate. That's what Apex has been for me and for so many of our members. But the beautiful thing is when you're a part of a community that's growth minded and you have folks like yourself that are willing to share and to pour into the cups of others, it's so amazing to see just how much growth is possible, because it's like compounding effect. It's like, hey, I'm going to pour into your cup and you're going to take and you're going to pour into this cup. And then all of a sudden we look up and everybody's got something to eat and we're all sharing and we're all benefiting from the energy that we're receiving there. And then it's like, well, let me tell you about Kevin. Kevin's been the most responsive guy in the credit industry I've worked with in a long time, because I know there's a certain kind of individual that has to deal with bad credit. And let's just be honest, nobody wants to admit that they've been a shitty credit, like, I get it. It's not a sexy thing, but one of the things you've done an amazing job, Kevin, is making it understandable, empathizing, right? Hey, no, I get it. We've all had these situations. Sometimes shit happens and we didn't even know. Right? Maybe it was a parking ticket from fucking 6 years ago that you never received because you moved and it's been dinging your credit and you didn't know that, but you've been embarrassed because you had a low number. Like, this is where having a real raw conversation, being in the right room, having those right conversations really makes the biggest difference, man. And Kevin, I'm just grateful that you've been someone who stepped up and really wanted to make sure there's a place for folks who can be vulnerable and have those conversations, because not everybody's willing to do that.
Yeah, man. I am a giver, dude, and I love giving to people, man. I do. It's you actually made a post about this. It's one of my favorite all-time posts, man. And you brought it back around to gratitude at the end of the post. It was probably maybe a month ago or so, but you were talking about when life can become just this dopamine hit, and where if you're chasing a dollar or if you're doing whatever all the time, it just becomes repetitive, this thing that there's no end to. And that's at the end, you circled back around and brought it to home. The gratitude is the real key. And man, I've kind of discovered some of that, Drewby, where with my business and my growth, where it's like, okay, this hamster wheel, man, where's the real value in life, man? And what am I trying to do here? And that's where a lot of it comes from. But what ironically I have found out is the more I give to people, man, the more I get in return, man. It's just amazing, man, the abundance of love I get from people just because I pour my heart into them. And learn that from you guys, by the way, man, because of the abundance mindset that I've gotten from Apex.
No, I appreciate that. It's, man, and it can get a little woo-woo, and a lot of people will hear some of these conversations that are had, and they're kind of like, well, that's the same shit just over and over and over. And it's, well, okay, yeah, I understand that. But in the training I've done, in the coaching I've done with some of the most powerful individuals that exist, and I don't mean just power for because they make money, but I mean like have done some real gangster shit in this world, they always tell me like, hey man, the basics is what wins wars. When you're training in the military, they're not always training on like the fanciest and the coolest and the most up to date. What they're doing day in and day out is the basics: formation, foundation, mundane, repetitive movements, so that in the heat of battle, when shit's really going wrong, you can fall back on your muscle memory. And that's what happens when you dive in on the change of gratitude and mindset, right? Is like, okay, now I'm going into the battle, to the war, whatever you want to call it, with a set of skills. And that skill set falls back on gratitude, so that in the heat of the moment, whatever's going on, deals falling apart, clients yelling at you, spouses screaming about something or other, like inevitably the fires are raging in our lives at all times. It's just a matter of how big is it right now and can I handle the heat? But as you're moving through that, having that gratitude in your back pocket, knowing that you can fall back and say, cool, everything's going wrong right now. What do I got on me? Well, I'm alive. I'm breathing. I can look around and these are the resources that I have, and this is the result that I need. Cool. I'm grateful that I have something because I got better than nothing. And if you're great, if you got nothing, it's like, all right, great. I'm grateful I got nothing to lose at this point, so I can go all in and really commit, because at this point, what's the difference? But when you can fall back on the gratitude as the basic foundation, anything is possible. It's like, well, cool. Even if I fail, to me, I know I got my wife and son at home. Hey, even if this call goes wrong and I don't close this deal, I know I can go out and make 5 more calls tomorrow and set up another opportunity. Whatever you got going on, it can be handled through gratitude. And I think that going back to those basics of like, all right, what's going crazy and what can I control? That's what makes a big difference. And a lot of people don't have that in their lives. They're just like, well, man, I don't have nothing to be grateful for. Everything's going wrong and the whole world's against me. And like, I know, because I've been there. I've fallen into that victim trap too. It's something that happens, but it's how we look at it and go, okay, where am I at? And what steps am I going to take to get out of this hole? Because most people just keep digging the hole deeper and deeper instead of being like, all right, well, let me carve out a handhold in the side of this wall, and I'm going to put one over here, right? And then I'll slowly just dig myself up out of this bad boy. But it all comes back to the gratitude, because it's like, hey, man, I'm grateful I got this shovel so I can dig a foothold and get the fuck out of this hole I'm in.
You know, about, man, probably a year ago, man, maybe a little bit longer. Like this will be my 3rd year in Apex, man. So
time flies. Bro.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? So I'm gonna say probably a year ago, something like that, man. I had this revelation, man. I never saw this, I never put this together, but it was the question's always, where does abundance mindset comes from? The ability to grow and really build. And where do you get that from? And I never knew, I knew that one of our cores and with the G code is to write down the 5 things you're grateful for every single morning. You're supposed to do it before your feet hit the ground, before you take on any of the nonsense of the world. You're supposed to write those because it makes you have that mind shift. And so what I finally figured out about a year ago was that the gratitude is the cornerstone of abundance, because it throws your mind into this good, positive place. Because if you're thinking negative like that, there's no way you can think about positive and really grow anything. It's just impossible.
You cannot find the anger and the fear when you're living in gratitude, because those things, they can't exist together. And as you were saying, it's the growth mindset really comes back to accepting that you deserve more. And I think that is one of the bigger problems that most individuals deal with, is saying, hey, you know what? I do deserve to have a good life. I do deserve to be happy. I deserve to go and be and have fulfillment. And a lot of people, this internal shame or guilt or whatever it is that they're dealing with from some past situation is creating that mental barrier from being able to receive. And that's why, gratitude is a big foundation, but I think giving is another foundation of that. And again, you're a great example, because when you're willing to give freely, it is telling the universe that you are okay with being like having less. And it's like the woo-woo side of the world, right? That now it's like, okay, well, now I want to give you more so that you can have less of more. And then I can give you more of that to have less of. Because if you're giving, it's a cycle. It's like, okay, cool. If I give you this $10 and then you keep it, well, nothing happens. But if I give you $10 and you go spend $2 at the corner store, and you spend $5 with the lady at the gas station, and then you tip $2 to the busboy, well, 3 different individuals have now been affected from that giving. And it's a cycle. And so that money will find its next path. And you can't sit on your collection and expect it to make you wealthy, because no wealth transfers until there's a transfer. So people that are sitting on all this, like, well, I'm saving for this and I'm saving for this, and that's cool. But like, even if you're collecting things, there's no value to that collection until an exchange occurs. So thinking about that bigger picture to me is like, okay, well, if I know that, what are the things I'm collecting? Am I collecting material possessions, or am I collecting memories? Because success is a perspective. And some people see success as, oh, well, I got to have a fancy car, and I've got to have a big house, and I've got to have the watches and the necklaces and the what have yous. But what's the value of those long term? You can't take them with you. Sure, you can pass them on to your family and have a legacy of items. But what if your family doesn't care about those things? Right? The perspective that you have on materials, on life, on success is very much different than the next person. Kevin, you and I see it differently. What we see as success is different. We may have a lot of similarities of what we're trying to accomplish, but at the end of the day, we're different. It's being willing to say, hey, I'll give you what you need to be successful in your life, is what opens up that circle of giving, of saying, all right, well, cool. Then somebody's going to see you and want to give you what you need to have your life. And when you're in the right rooms with the right people, that's how things start to shake out.
And I wanted to talk. This is one thing I want to talk to you about. What it must be like, and we can use me for an example here, because you've seen me make great strides with what the mindset, because we were just talking about mindset, and we were talking about imposter syndrome and that kind of thing from in our family of choice, in our Apex group. You've seen me from when I came in, over 2 years ago, and started posting, just a scared little 50-year-old man. That's what I was, man. And that must be so gratifying to be part of, for somebody like yourself, man, that has a huge heart himself, to be able to just watch us. I'm about to tear up, bro. That's how much it means to me, what this growth and this has done for my family and me and my wife, Kelly. I mean, it's just been amazing, man. And for you to watch that happen, man, I'm envious, bro. It's a great place, man.
You know what, though, Kevin? Don't be envious. Be excited, because it means you have that same opportunity. Because a few years back, I was scared. I was nervous. I didn't know shit. To this day, I'm still scared and nervous. Like, we're all in the same boat, rowing against the tidal wave that's coming. Life is just one big freaking wave after another. Being a part of this group, getting to see what I've seen, absolutely amazing. And those are the things that I think about when I'm having a tough day, and I'm like in the trenches, or I'm calling, or I'm dealing with something that I don't, want to have to deal with, because stress is stress is stress. And if it sucks, it sucks. It's just the way it goes. But when I'm in those moments and I'm in those struggles, and I'm thinking like, do I want to quit? What do I want to do? Obviously, quitting is not an option. So why am I doing what I'm doing? What's my purpose? And then I get the chance to think back to guys like yourself and folks who have reached out to me at 4:30 in the morning, 9 o'clock at night. It's like, hey man, I saw your post. I really appreciate you. I was gonna quit. I was gonna leave this. Like, I'm in the middle of 75 hard and I didn't want to finish the day, but like, fuck, I saw you were out there in the gym at 4 a.m. I knew I had to get out there and get after it. Right. A lot of the stuff that I've shared in that journey in my journey specifically, which is why I love to watch it, has felt very, very douchey. Taking a selfie of yourself every day at 4:45 a.m. or 5 a.m. going into the gym. One of I know people look at me doing it and they're like, this fucking douche. But here's the thing. Dozens of people have reached out and been like, hey man, I was going to skip the gym today, but then I opened up Facebook or Instagram and you were the first fucking thing I seen and I knew I couldn't do it. I couldn't let you down. Man, that's a fucking game changer right there. That's the kind of stuff that I go, damn it, I didn't want to work out today either, you dickhead. Now I got to get my shit together. Like, all right, I'm on it. But being a part and seeing that is really fantastic. What I really, truly love, though, Kevin, is knowing there are dozens, perhaps hundreds, maybe thousands of people that will watch, they'll look, they'll take something from it and they'll change their life, and I'll never know about it. And that to me is the bigger play of gratitude, because at some point, the message, the things that we're doing, the things that we're putting out here, this podcast, this show itself, if one person hears it and they decide to change their life, then we've made a generational impact, because that one person could go on to meet another person who they share this value with. And that person ends up going on and deciding, hey, instead of killing myself, I'm going to go and change my life and I'm going to cure cancer. I'm going to save and create this thing that makes automobiles safe and nobody ever has an auto accident where they pass away again. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. But I know if I show up every day and I set the example, guys like yourself and other individuals who want to really, truly make a change in their life, they will show up, they will listen, and they will take action. And when you take action, you get a result. It may not always be the result you're looking for. That's why it's important to kind of measure what you're doing and where you're at and paying attention to these things. But if you do the work, there will be a result. It's inevitable. Now you have to decide, what work are you going to do? And are you going to be committed and consistent? Because Kevin, you're a perfect example, dude. Trust the process. Doesn't always make sense at first, but if you trust the process, things fall in line exactly how they're supposed to do it.
You talk about that in your book, man, and I want to dive into your book, because this book, you talk about that, about how it's hard when you first start posting in social media and that kind of thing, and that actually is what's the word I'm looking for? Umbrella of an example of life in general, business, and going out, getting that first client, and then learning how, like my first credit repair client, I remember, getting off the phone with the realtor, and the realtor, I remember very vividly, she's saying, all right, dude, I'm gonna give you a chance here, Kevin. And hanging up the phone and going, okay, now I got to learn how to fix this person's credit. I mean, and that's the way social media is. But now, you see me like every day getting testimonials, and I'm changing lives and helping people change their generations, because they're teaching people how to be credit conscientious and know what's going on with their credit so they can teach it to their children. And that's the same thing with teaching people with what you're doing with this social media is where I want to go, to help people build their business, and Apex as well, but help people build their business and help people with these kind of tools that you're teaching in this book. Man, I'm the type of guy, man. I'm not the kind of guy that just runs through books like, oh, I'm going to read this book, and then, I'm going to read a book, 5 books a month or any kind of things like that. I find a book and I dive into it, man. And I mean, I mark that sucker up, man, and I'm going to memorize that thing. I did it with M3. And that's where you see a lot of what you see me doing in social media. And now I've found this one. I've got it right here. I don't know if they can see it or not. Social Media Mastery. That's Drewby. There you go. And man, it's the same thing. I've already read it for the second time. I got the highlighter out, man. I mean, this book, you laid it out with this book, man. It covers from how to set up a social media page all the way to where you get into what I'm really fascinated with, the repurposing part. and
Mm-hmm.
everything in between. So let's talk about this book, man. How'd you come across, how'd you come into the idea of, let me write a book about this?
So let's take it back to 2018, roughly, maybe 2017, 2018. I was an insurance agent. I was trying to figure out how to get more leads. That's all I cared about. I make sales. I need leads. The more leads I make, the more sales I close, the more money I make. It's a pretty simple formula. And so I was on social media in the Facebook communities trying to learn how some of these other agents were getting their deals. And they're like, well, we're getting these Facebook leads for super cheap. And I'm like, okay, fantastic. Like, what's that cost? I'm like, well, we're spent, to get the training, it's $1,500. I don't have $1,500, dog. That's like 2 weeks worth of pay and a commission. Like, I don't got that. So I went to the agent. I was like, hey man, these guys will teach us how to get leads for $1,500. He's like, hell no. Go buy the leads, man. You don't need to learn how to get them. Go buy them. Oh shit. Okay. So like I go to try to get these leads and like yada yada. Long story short, I find Ryan Stewman and it's like, all right, get this software and start learning how to generate your own leads. I'm like, badass. So I buy the software and I build the phone sites pages and I start running paid advertising. And I'm getting leads, but I'm also paying money to get leads. And I'm a solo producer, so I don't have a whole lot of extra income on top of a wife and a new baby boy and a home we just bought, right? So like I'm trying to figure out how can I get leads where I don't got to pay for them. So start following. Hey man, you should probably be a part of Apex. We're going to teach you all these formulas, how to create content, how to set all this stuff up, and really how to generate inbound opportunity for yourself versus paying for leads. Now, you still want to pay for leads because you got more leads, you got more closes, but like we can get it a balance of things, right? So like, okay. So I join Apex, start doing the work, start implementing the training. Within a month or two, I'm doubled my production, getting calls from other agents like, yo, what are you doing, man? How are you making so much money? You definitely doing something illegal. Well, no, I'm not doing anything illegal, but I'm like posting and I'm getting these leads and I've got these things set up, these funnels. Well, I'm not going to learn all that shit, but I'll give you a couple grand to set it up for me. Damn, okay. Long story short, start setting them up. Ryan Stewman calls me one day. He's like, hey, man, I think you're in the wrong business, doc. Maybe you want to come down and spend the day with me. Let's talk. Me? All right, I'm in. So come down, really dive in with Ryan. And I spent 4 years learning inside now every process that we teach in our Apex community. And one of the first events that I came to back in 2019 was a small event called Social Media Mastery. We literally used to bring people in and we'd spend the day teaching them to set up their profile, how to create content. We'd teach them how to build a funnel on the second day so they could learn how to like do all that. And it was a whole day long course, like 8-9 hours of just hammering. So, it was a great course. Over the years, we got dialed in, we got better, we learned, we grew, we got more that came in through Ryan and through other members, and we got better. And then back at the beginning of 2023, so a couple of years later, I've built a big audience. I've written books. I've done some of the stuff that is in this book. I did all the things that I talk about, right, and got the results. And I was like, well, what can I do to give back? Because I'm thinking, how can I provide some extra value? How can I pour into our community? So it's like, well, let me go do a social media mastery training for our phone sites users. Funny enough, that's where I got my start. If I can teach people that are using our software how to generate more leads, they got to, traffic to their pages. It's a win-win-win for everybody. So I go in, I set up this presentation, I do the webinar, I got the slides, I'm all freaking fired up and excited about it. And at the end, everybody gave me a ton of great feedback. They're like, oh, that was great. This is kind of like, a shrunken down version of Apex in an extent. And we loved it. So it's like, well, that was really good. I felt good about it. What can I do with this? It's like not just a one and done thing, right? Why make one piece of content and then never use it again? Why build a house and not live in it, right, guys? So I was thinking, like, well, what can I do? So as I have it transcribed, and I'm like, well, maybe I'll turn it into an ebook and maybe do like a little tactical ebook thing, some lead gen. So, no, we can do bigger than that. So I messaged Ryan. I said, hey, dude, I just had this awesome webinar for phone sites. I was thinking about making it an ebook, but now I think I'm just going to have it become like a whole book and see if I can get it launched within 30 days and have it go to bestseller using only organic strategies that I teach in the book. Wouldn't that be cool? He was like, hell yeah, man, that's awesome. Camp Drew be turning out great ideas today. And it was kind of like a joking thing. It's like, all right, well, maybe. And so I sent the transcription off. I went through the process, and all of a sudden, within 2 days, I was like, oh shit, I got a first draft. I got, a cover design going. This thing's really happening. And so I just went balls deep on it, man. I just went all in on getting this content put together, organizing it, and just God kind of had his hand on me. It was like, make it all happen. Uploaded it to KDP, the Amazon distributor, on day 17 after the webinar. So day 18 total. Launched that bad boy within 24 hours. We hit bestseller in 3 categories. I've sold, since it launched in February, just over 500 copies, I want to say. We've had a ton of people that have been able to implement it and see some pretty massive results just from the simple stuff that they learned in the book here. And it's been a wild journey. Like I said, sometimes I tell stories, I'm like, man, it feels very braggadocious. But it's just, hey man, I went and did some shit. Like, I got an idea and I went and did the work, and it fucking turned out. And that's why I'm so encouraging to the listeners here. It's like, hey, do the work and you will get the result. It's kind of a no-fail thing.
The biggest thing that I love about it is about this book, and we'll get into the meat and potatoes of it, but it's organic. It's how to generate organic leads as opposed to paid leads. And the reason that works, so it means it works so much for me, Kevin Faulkner, in my business, 3B Credit Health, is like, I used to, and I still do, I have relationships with a lot of lenders, a lot of realtors, people like that, and they send me leads. But here's the deal, man. Like, if Drewby goes to, John Smith, the lender, to go try to buy a house, and John has to come tell you, Drewby, I'm sorry, but you're not ready. Your credit's not where I need it to be, but I've got this guy that I want you to call. Well, John, first of all, just crushed your dreams because he told you couldn't buy a home. So now he's sad. Now you're sad. Drewby's sad. And now Drewby's like, I'm not calling this Kevin dude, man. I don't know this guy from anybody. And so then John connects me with you, and I call you up, and it's like, it's just really not a great lead, man. So when I started following the things I've learned in Apex and the things that you talk about so great, do such a great job of talking about in this book, man, and generating those organic leads, they come into my DM. People are ready to sign up, man. So that's what you're teaching people how to do with this book, man.
Well, I appreciate that testimony. Hopefully you'll cut this out and save me that clip later on so I can reuse it and repurpose the content, because that's what we do. But you're absolutely right. And especially in your industry, right? When I was selling insurance, it was one of those things where I would go and get leads for real estate agents and mortgage officers, and I'd send them the leads and be like, hey, these people are interested in buying a home. Now, in my naivety as a young insurance producer, I didn't realize that real estate agents don't give a shit about buyers. So anybody I sent to them that was like, hey, this is a guy that wants to buy a home, they're like, no, I don't fucking chase buyer leads. Send me a seller so I can list it and get paid. I don't want to do no work. And then the mortgage people, same thing. Like, these people were interested, but if they didn't have the perfect credit or they didn't have exactly what they needed, they would be like, oh, well, that lead sucked. And it's like, well, no, man, these people want to buy a home. You just don't have a process in place to help them. And Kevin, had I known you back in the day, it might have been a different situation. So I'm like, well, homie, these guys need some credit. Then when they got credit, they can buy a house. And once they buy a house, then I can get their insurance and we can all win this bad boy together. Didn't work out that way. But that, you're right, though. And I can imagine in that relationship, especially, it is hard because this person is emotional damage. Because they're like, well, fuck, man, I wanted to buy a home, and now you're telling me that my credit sucks because of fucking a parking ticket that I got 6 years ago, or a bill that was in my baby mama daddy name and ain't even my fault, but I got caught up in that bullshit, when realistically, those things can be fixed. And if they were just willing to be open and vulnerable with you and share that, then you could help, like, hey, man, yeah, we can knock this out. Take 60 days. Once you're done with this, it'll come off on day 90. You'll be able to reapply for your home. You'll be rocking and rolling. And maybe we get started and show them all this is in process, and the underwriting team's like, oh yeah, you're good. Come on. We know it's some BS. This is what it would actually rate at based on the actuary scale and yada, yada. Like, all right, cool. But as you said, it's a lot better when you're like, hey man, this is what I do, this is what I'm an expert in. If you're dealing with it, I'll share whatever value I can to help you. And then if you want more and I have to charge you for it, I will, just because that's how this works. But if I can give you the game and help you for free, I'll do that too. But now as the expert, people are going to reach out to you, because when they try to do the thing on their own and it doesn't quite go as they expected, because it's never as easy as it looks in the documents and all the shit that, even if it's the government telling you exactly how to do it, you're like, it makes no damn sense, man. What you talking about? So they come back to you as the expert and they're like, well, I see you posting. I see you're consistently helping people. I see others talking about you in a positive manner. And as such, tell me how I can get the help that I need to get the thing that I want.
Man, absolutely, man. I want to get your feedback on this too. See people, and I've worked with people. I'm not a coach, dude, but I like to just help people, man. And it's just so rewarding to see people. And so, I work with a couple of people at any given time, man, to help them with their social media. And biggest thing I see people missing on with their content is they're talking to the wrong avatar. They're all over the place. They're not consistent with what they're doing. So you have to, help people to be able to reach their target audience. And I think that's step number one. What would you agree with that? Or
when I think about the marketing aspect of things, because that's really what social media is. It's kind of just marketing. It's you have to have an audience of people, you have to have an offer, and then you have to have a way to present that offer to those people. It's kind of the foundation, right? It's usually like, hey, I need a guy who's walking down the street to see my brick and mortar building and come in because he's thirsty, and I got water to sell him. And so if he's got money, I got water, we can have a transaction. That's kind of how marketing works. Same thing on social media. If you are trying to use it as a tool, the first step is knowing who you're actually speaking to, because there's 2 billion users on social media. And the truth is, if I gave you 200 clients right now, you'd crumble. If I gave you 20 clients, you might even crumble. If I give you 2, you might be okay. The problem is a lot of people think they need to speak to everyone because that they need to have more people looking at their thing to want it. But the truth is, a lot of people don't want what you got. And if they did, they'd know where to go and find it, and they'd go and find it from the person that they see, that they know, like, and trust. And so dialing in on that message, who am I actually showing up for and what message am I trying to deliver to them? That's a very important first step for sure.
And then the other, so dialing in on that who you're talking to, that's very important. We call it in Apex, we call it avatar or ideal client. The next thing that, and you covered this in the book, is that E3. And I know you write with E3 because I've seen it and actually admired your artistry in the way you write, man. You made one post and I commented in the comments about BMX riding, because I know you like to ride bicycles a lot. Mm-hmm. And it had a great picture. It had a great lead in. And then I, who don't care anything about riding bikes, was brought into that. And it was and really enjoyed. I even let my wife read it. And I said, man, I want to get where I can write like this. This is really good. And you used E3. Can you talk on that a few minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, E3 is something I learned from Ryan here in the program. It's our formula for creating content. So when you think about the stuff that you look at on social media, for the majority of us, we're not looking at it because we want to be sold, right? Like, we're not on social media because we want to know all about you. We don't want to know all about your thing that you're trying to sell me. We don't care about a whole lot of stuff. Like, we're on social media because we want to be creeps. So we do care about you in a sense of, like, we want to know what you're doing because we want to know if we can know, like, and trust you. And so the E3 formula comes back to how we create the content that speaks to the audience of people we're trying to speak to, right? As you said, you have to have the right message for the right people. So when I think about the E3 method and the formula I'm using for creating content, it goes like this. The first E is have an experience, which every single day you have some kind of experience. This call is an experience. The sales calls that I'm going to make after this call, those are experiences. The meeting that we had this morning, that's an experience. The drive into work, the picking up the pizza. There's all of these things that we do every single day. Now, when we look back at the day and we look at all these experiences, is there a lesson that we can extract? Because the second E is to extract the lesson from that experience. So let's use this as a real-time E3 thing. Today, I was having a call with my friend and credit expert, Kevin Faulkner from 3B Credit Repair. We were discussing the different journeys people take while building their business. And one of the things that we mentioned was the simple formulas that can be used for creating content. Now, that content is very, very powerful because it draws the right audience of people using the right message. So you see how I'm having this experience, but I'm also kind of pulling the lesson out of that, right? I'm extracting the lesson. The third E is looking at that experience and the lesson that you've extracted from that, and then crafting a entertaining and educational story. Because facts tell, but stories sell. I think I stole that from Ed Milet. I don't know where he got it from, but I definitely stole that from him. So shout out to Ed for that one. Appreciate you, dog. But that's the truth, right? When we're on social media and we're scrolling, we don't necessarily stop when we see the ad that's like, hey, you're dealing with this, you should buy this thing. No, we stop and we look and we're like, hey, have you ever felt lost? Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Are you tired of wanting the things in life that you deserve, but unsure why everyone tells you you don't have good enough credit to buy it? This guy talking to me? Yeah. A lot of people don't understand that fixing your credit is as simple as having a phone call or sending a letter. A lot of times we're lost because we don't know what we don't know. And when we don't know what we don't know, we're floating around in an ether that feels very, very lonely. Don't worry. My man Kevin's here to save you. He's going to fly in on his credit repair carpet and he's going to show you the way to the future. Because what you don't know is that sending this letter to the right agency will knock all of those negative points off in the next 60 days, which means potentially an increase of 40 to 50 points on your credit history and the ability to go and get that new car that you've been waiting for, because we know you want to get to work to keep building a life to provide for your family. You're like, oh shit, this guy might be talking to me because he knows that I need a new car so I can get to work or my baby ain't going to have no Pampers. And that's not who I want to be. And it's kind of silly because he's talking about flying in on a magic carpet and what the fuck that means. But like, all right, I'm in, Kevin, let's talk, right? And that might be like a very poorly just made up example on the spot. But when you think about educating and entertaining people, that's why they are on social media, because they want to creep. They want to see what you have going on. And what better way to keep people engaged than telling stories, especially stories that will relate to them in some way, tugging at their heartstrings or making them exit that conversation feeling, man, I'm smarter after reading that. Holy shit, I didn't know that. I'm glad I do, because you learn something new every day. So when you think about what experience did you have today, what lesson can you extract from it, and how can it benefit your audience, then telling a story that's educating and entertaining for that audience with that experience. Did I explain that clearly?
That's great, man. Another thing, I want to go back a minute to earlier in the call when we were talking about gratitude, because I yesterday I went to the dollar store because so here's a post I did yesterday morning. We'll walk through that I thought that will go along with what you just talked about. It's in real time. So My dog, I put my dog in my truck just to get out of the house for a little bit, clear my mind. We like to ride the back roads a little bit for an hour, not every day, but a couple of times a week. And I'll listen to like old school George Strait and just go chill, get out of the house a little bit. My dog likes to go. And I stopped at the dollar store, and I can't even remember what I was buying, man. Highlighter or something like that. It was, I don't know, something for work. And so I stop and I'm getting at the dollar store, and I had to call a girl over to help me because I didn't know how to use their new system. Their new self-checkout was different than the one at Walmart that I'm used to. And what went through my mind was, and this is because of gratitude, gives me an abundance mindset and makes me think this way on different situations that I run into in life. I was like, man, this is no big deal. This is an opportunity to get better. After you do a few reps of this thing, you're going to be good at it. It's no big deal. Just, it's no problem. Just like anything, it just takes reps. And so I made a post about that, and I talked about how, how we ride in the truck. That lets people know who Kevin Faulkner is. We go for an hour a day just to clear my head, just so I can kind of get away. My dog, Cash, the credit repair dog, enjoys it. And we just get out and kind of see the thing. We listen to George Strait. It lets people know that I enjoy what kind of music I listen to. Oh, he's just a, dude in his 50s that enjoys some good country music, old school country music. And then we talked about the dollar store and the example there. And the lesson was, where we brought it back around, was do the reps, and no matter what it is in life, and you'll be better at it, and it'll be fine. And so that I learned that from you guys, man.
Well, and what I think is important to recognize with that is you're giving the viewer, the audience, what they're looking for. A little insight into who you are and what you got going on. And I don't know the exact statistic, but there's a large majority of the world that likes dogs. So just talking about riding around with your dog is going to get some people's attention. And then if they're into, they also enjoy country music or going for long car rides, that's one more tick in the trust box. Like, hey, man, this guy, every time one more line I get further into this, I like him a little bit more. I like him a little bit more. And just being relatable to, hey, technology's changing. Things are always on the evolvement. Like, you never know when things that used to work one way might change. For you, that's a big thing, because in credit repair, it might be, hey, you used to just send this kind of templated letter, you'd do this, whatever, and they would just knock it off, no problem. Then they were like, nah, F that. You got to do this, this, and this now, because we was giving away too much money. And so if you don't know that, you don't know that. It's like you said, there's a new machine. It doesn't work like everything else that I thought worked before. This is going to happen in life. And your way of explaining and expressing that is very powerful. And you've done a great job of learning and implementing the formula. And it wasn't perfect at first. It took you some time. You had to kind of fumble through it a few times. But in the end, doing the reps, staying consistent, allowed you to be one of the more prolific writers, to be someone who's able to go out and say, cool, this is my story, make it look good, make it readable, make sure it's not just a big block of fucking text that looks ugly to see. No, you understand there's a formula, there's a nuance to it, where it's kind of like dancing, right? If you go and pick up your wife and you start dancing, if you guys are at the wrong beat or you're doing things the wrong way, it doesn't look good. But when you have the formula and you trust the process and you follow the flow of the music and the thoughts, hey man, greatness comes out of that.
Let me get your thoughts on one more thing, man, about the book. And we have not done any justice to this book, man. But we could talk for 8 hours and not do justice to this book, man. It's that good of a book. Everybody needs to go buy this book, Social Media Mastery, Drewby Wilson. We're going to tell you how to find it in a few minutes. But Drewby, a lot of questions too that I run into with people, and I wonder myself, is how often should we, so we've got our avatar, our ideal client, we're using the E3 method to talk to the client. How often should we make use a meme? And then also, how often should we make an offer? And all this is covered in the book, by the way.
Yeah, buddy, this is very, very high value content in the book. So you're asking two separate questions. So let's start with the how often can I make an offer? So I'm going to liken this back for y'all to if you watched television back in the day before Hulu and Prime and all the shit that exists now. We used to watch these things called advertisements. Some of you may recognize them from scrolling through social media where you have some weird video in your feed and you're like, what is this? That's an advertisement. It's interruption marketing. So when you are creating content for social media, you have become your own chief content officer, i.e., you are responsible for everything that gets done, said, and previewed on your channel. With that, if you've ever watched a television show that was all ads and no TV entertainment, you changed it. Unless you're really nerdy, you didn't watch QVC. You changed it because you're like, I don't give a shit about this. Like, I'm not watching QVC. No, I want entertainment. I want SpongeBob. I want Friends. I want Blue Chips, whatever. Like, we all had a thing, but we would sit through 17 minutes of television and then wait for 4 minutes of commercials to get back to the next round of television. And so your viewer has grown up, most likely, with this same mentality. We will subject ourselves to a certain number of advertisements in order to get the thing that we want. We're trained that way at this point. And with the people that you know on social media that you see constantly posting about their offer, their pitch, you should buy from me, who do you know that I can help with this thing, that, whatever, you're like, hey, Doug, you're kind of fucking obnoxious. Like, I know. We know. You can do the thing. That's awesome. If I have a guy, I'll send him to you. I'm not gonna, because you're kind of obnoxious, and I don't want to send my clients to somebody that's obnoxious. But if you see somebody that's posting about their family, they're posting about, a win that they had, some physical fitness goal, something that they, personally are going through and you can relate with. If on occasion I drop in a story where I talk about, hey man, I had a great opportunity to hop on a call today with my friend Kevin Faulkner. We got really deep talking about, building a business and building a brand and leveraging social media. And he was so kind to really talk about my book that I put out a few months ago and all the benefits that he's gotten from it. And I just want to thank him for the opportunity to jump in and share some value and to have a good, genuine conversation with someone that I know and appreciate. I could make that post. And what I'm doing is I'm pitching my book. I'm selling you on like, hey man, I want to buy this. Like, this book was good. I should buy that. But nowhere in there did I say, hey, you should go buy my book. Nowhere in there is like, hey, I'm an expert on social media and you should pay me to get, coaching. I can do that if you want, but I'm not pitching you on that. I'm letting you know I'm the expert, and that if I'm doing this correctly, that's piquing curiosity enough to you to go, all right, man, what's this book about? And so in the comments on there, they'll be like, well, what book did you guys talk about? And I'll come back in and I'll drop the post to socialmediamasterybook.com, where you can download not only the book, but a free replay that I talk about on the webinar. And you can listen to the same kind of conversation in video and audio form instead of the book. All right. But I don't have to do that because I built an audience of people who know, like, and trust me, because I'm very specific about how I create content and how often I make offers. And then to follow up with your second question about the memes, it's the same thing. If the only thing I post is memes all day long, at some point, you may get sick of the memes that I post. I follow dozens of meme pages on Instagram, but I don't go and actively seek them out unless I'm looking for some sort of specific template. If I happen across it, I might look at it real quick, but it's not something that I'm actively going and being a part of all day long because it doesn't bring any value to my life. Memes are not going to bring value to your audience's life unless there is a story to go with that meme, an emotional connection, some sort of inquisitiveness about it that makes them go, well, damn it, this guy must be the expert, and I probably should reach out and talk to him about it. Right? You may drop a meme about the guy looking homeless, living in a box, and then all of a sudden he's standing outside at his closing, and it's like 90 days after signing up to work with 3B Credit Health, right? It's like, well, shit, you went from living in a box to living in a new home? Well, yeah, because I had shitty credit. It helped me get my credit fixed. All right, well, that's a real quick story in a half a split second in a meme. And if I'm somebody that's like, how did this guy get out of that box? That's silly. Let me talk to Kevin. Would you really do that for that guy? Or are you just pulling my chain? But it's starting to spark the conversation. But if every day you post a meme about credit repair and how you can make people rich or get them into this new home, they're gonna be like, yeah, man, I fucking know. Like, cool, wonderful. Posting memes every day, dog. I love it. And I'm the meme lord. I literally tattooed it across my knuckles. So you would think, hey, a guy that tattooed meme lord would post memes every day. I do, but I'm strategic and I don't post them in the same place every day because I'm trying to leave little clues and little hints for people to be able to come back and see me for more information. So hopefully that answers your question.
This has been amazing, dude. I really appreciate you coming in here and just leaving it all on the field, man. You have really brought the value. Tell us, man, where we can find you, Drewby, and where we can reach out. I know, real quick, man, one thing, and I might be stepping over the line by even saying this one, because in the book, you said you've only got 30 slots, but maybe people can still get on the list. I don't know, man, but you had a heck of an offer for anybody that wants a one-on-one time with you in social media, man, in the book, in the back of a book. Can you talk about that offer a little bit if it's still available? I don't know. It is.
I do have just a handful of slots left. Some people bought the book and put it in their queue, so they're like, oh, I'll read it later. They don't know that they're missing out on. But yes, one of the things that you write a book, one of the reasons is to create an opportunity for people to take that next step. Part of that for me was putting the offer in here at the back. Let me find it. Where'd she go? Yeah, social media breakdown. So basically, I put this offer together and I give you access to all of my training slides, all of the different speeches, but more importantly, you and I will get on a call together and we will one-to-one build out your social media organic strategy. We'll talk about your ideal client. We'll talk about your message. We'll talk about the steps and processes and the content creation and how you can start implementing this right away to start driving your message to the right people. And for me, it's an opportunity to show up and say, hey, a lot of folks look at this and go, okay, like I got a message, I got a thing, but I'm not quite sure how to like really get started. That offer is there to really help you understand, okay, cool. Here's the foundation. Here's how we get started. And here's my marching orders for the next 30, 60, 90 days to really create a massive change, but also to generate tons and tons of impressions for your message in front of the right audience.
Yeah, and it's a great, y'all take Drewby up on that. Drewby, where can we find you on social media, brother?
Yes, sir. So if you go to Drewby Wilson on Facebook or at Drewby Rise on Instagram, you can also just go to connectwithdrewby.com. If you go to connectwithdrewby.com, it's got a link to all my social media. It has a link that you can text me directly. So if you want to be like, hey, Drewby, I loved your speech with Kevin. I would love to get access to your book or your slides or anything that you have available. You can text me right from connectwithdrewby.com. You can also add me to your contacts. That way, when I text you back or call you later, because, I see like call the damn leads, right? So when I call you, it'll pop up and I'll be in your phone as a contact and it won't send me right to voicemail. So connectwithdrewby.com, reach out, send me a message, smoke signal, say, hey, man, I really enjoyed that conversation with Kevin. But more importantly, man, it ain't about me. It's about you, Kevin. If they're here, it's because you've made the time to make this show and to be out here providing value. And like more than anything, man, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be here and to share, because at the end of the day, if we didn't have amazing examples like you out there telling the world, sharing your story, my story wouldn't mean jack shit, man, because it's not about my results. It's about your results and the results of everyone who listens to this call and takes action. So thank you for the opportunity, sir.
Appreciate that. That means a lot to me, man. Appreciate everything, man. Appreciate your time today. Guys, y'all have heard some great stuff today. Take action on this, man. Put it to use. Buy the book, Social Media Mastery. That's how I've grown my business. Y'all hear me talk about it every week. Drewby, appreciate you being here, brother. And we'll see you guys next week. Y'all keep growing.